Hello and welcome to FinTech Impact. I'm your host, Jason Pereira. Today on the show, I have John Lenker, CEO and Chief Vision Officer, and Kevin deLaplante, Chief Knowledge Officer of Lenker. Lenker is a growth consultant that comes in and helps consult early stage startups on making sure that they have product market fit and a brand that's recognizable before the time of launch. And with that, here's my interview with the two gentlemen. John, Kevin, how you doing?
Great. Thanks for having us on the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us.
Yes, thank you for putting up with me off of 3 to 4 hours sleep. So hopefully you can carry the show today. All right. So gentlemen, tell us about Lenker.
Well, we help early stage businesses all the way up to well-established businesses go to the next level, whatever that level is. And there's a focus on growth, but understanding that growth is generally generated by getting a whole bunch of people to get behind you and say yes to your value proposition. To get a whole bunch of people to get behind you and say yes to your value proposition. So there's a huge component of just marketing insights and understanding how to look at a population of people and ascertain how to get them to want to get behind you when you launch and want to support you in your growth.
Excellent. All right, so let's talk about the origin of the company. How did it come to be?
Well, way back in 2001, we started as an interactive agency called Inviani, and we pursued that for a number of years and had a lot of really interesting successes and opportunities to help businesses. But one thing that kept coming up was that when a business would hire us to help with their, interactive project, that there would always be something more fundamental that they needed to think through in order to make that project successful, with its branding or strategy. And so eventually we decided that we wanted to offer a full range of services around helping kind of the full range of needs that a business had. But we didn't want to be a marketing agency or an advertising agency. We wanted to be more like a boutique management consulting firm. We can kind of look at every aspect of the business, whether it's on the financial side, staffing, planning for growth, and your digital transformation and all the other kinds of things that we traditionally had in our wheelhouse. So in 2013, we changed the company name to Lenker, and ever since we've been helping businesses from early stage startups to multi-billion, multinational corporations to achieve their growth goals.
Okay. So let's dive into kind of the journey of what you do. So I'm an early stage startup. I have a widget. I've got a thing that I think is awesome. Basically, you're pitching me on why I need your services. What's the pitch?
Well, we really don't pitch why people need our services. For right off the bat, we take a consultative approach. The first time we meet with a potential client, it really is kind of a mutual interview. And it's not so much, please hire us, pretty please, as much as it is, let us know where you're coming from, what your situation is, what your goals are. And if we see them being in a place where we could really contribute to their success, then we generally give a pitch for that and put some kind of proposal together. But it's really all about helping organize a set of priorities and goals for the client and going through a conversation that helps everyone in the conversation understand what it is they're actually facing. And I'd say, at least 7 times out of 10, the entrepreneur has not fully thought through the business situation and finds all sorts of interest in helping and allowing us to help them think through their situation, kind of get them on track and maximize the probability that they're going to achieve their goals. Kevin actually does quite a bit with the early stage research on this, and he probably would want to chime in on some of this.
Yeah, it's Kevin, by all means.
One of the interesting things about what we do is that the problem that the client brings to us is almost never the problem that they're actually dealing with. But there's this level of the difference between how they think of the problem, and then over the course of some discovery and conversation and exploration, you find out that the problem has a different character to it. So that's one of the value proposition that we bring, is that we have a process for helping clients to come to better understand what their actual challenges are, and therefore what the solutions that we craft are going to be tailored to a more broader and more comprehensive assessment of what their actual problem situation is. So there's a bit of a therapy element here. Like you can imagine, kid who has some like behavioral issues that and they come to you seeking help. And you're not just going to say, well, I'll just look at the surface behavior and say, I think I have an answer for you. You're going to, especially if a kid has sort of like pathological behaviors, which is sometimes happens with startups and people, like they're just behaving pathologically. There's a deeper story here. There's other things going on. There are constraints going on. There's history.
So
Unpack that first.
Actions. What would you refer to as pathological behavior?
Behavior that, well, it certainly isn't in their long-term rational self-interest. They're burning up money that they don't have. They are making decisions in the wrong order. They are prioritizing things, or they're not thinking about things that they know are going to be important for their success just around the corner. So there's all kinds of things that we can help clients to see a clearer path forward.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why early stage technology startups, whether it's a SaaS platform or something, some app or something, why they get off track and why they struggle. So one area is just maybe they're coming from more of an engineering perspective, and they have this really cool technology that they believe if they just create it, it's going to improve the market in some way. And they just go about building it and getting people to help maybe get some seed capital around it. And they haven't ever really done a full market opportunity analysis. So the first reason people fail in these endeavors is lack of a proper market opportunity analysis, looking at the need in the marketplace, understanding who the audience is and who the buyer is, looking at the competitive landscape, looking at what is the current solution that's being offered and how far along is that current solution in terms of its development and market adoption, and just really figuring that out, that there's actually something that if you build it, the people will come if you promote it properly. So going through that analysis is something that a lot of times by the time clients get to us, it's a little too late for that. They're burned through 80%, 90% of their runway, and they haven't really started doing anything towards establishing their brand or getting traction or getting advocates to really be behind it. And so they're on their heels, they're panicking. It's not a great situation. One of the reasons that Kevin and I are doing these interviews is because we want to get the message out there to entrepreneurs in fintech to think about the right things earlier, have the proper framework and the roadmap for success before you get so far into it that you don't really have an opportunity to recover. So, for example, again, most entrepreneurs are focused on the technology. They put most of their resources and time behind that, and they kind of procrastinate on the go-to-market strategy and gaining traction and the branding and all that. And so they don't even really understand the capital requirements to get to the milestones that they're promising their investors they're going to get to. They don't even know the math around that. So those are the kinds of things that we can help with in a very serious way. We've got really smart tools and financial models and customer lifetime value simulation engines and really cool things that can guide early stage decision making. So that's one thing. That the problem is they fail because they haven't done a proper market opportunity analysis. Lenker helps early stage fintech startups do smart market opportunity analysis.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you got so many key issues with not just venture caps funded companies. I mean, some of them are specific. Like we start talking about the capital requirements to get to. So when you start talking about the capital requirements to get to the milestones, absolutely, that's a VC issue. But too often, I use this example all the time. It's the example of the artist. An artist gets into art because they love art, but they don't want to be starving artists. They need to learn how to sell their art. And the old comparison is Van Gogh dying broke and penniless, while Picasso was a very charismatic person who knew how to sell his wares and died the richest artist ever to live at the time. And it's, too often, especially in technology, people are basically dissatisfied with something and think, well, I can build a better mousetrap. And let's say it is better, right? Doesn't mean it's going to capture the market share away from the incumbents. I mean, how many different email handlers have you seen, yet the default is still Outlook for 99% of the market, right? So it's oftentimes I'll have this debate about someone saying, well, that technology doesn't do X, Y, Z. my response was, well, what does it matter? Right? Like it functionally accomplishes the same thing without any kind of friction, and you're not exactly offering a 10x multiplier on efficiency. So why go through the pain of change? Right. So it's not surprising to me that people will get obsessed with the painting or the artwork or whatever tool they're doing and stop to think that, if I just build a better mousetrap, the world will beat a bath to my door. There's been millions of better mousetraps patented, yet the one we always think of is the spring-loaded one.
Right. Yeah. Another area that ends up kind of getting in the way of success is underappreciating the importance of being a known quantity.
Yes.
If not in the population of people in the consumer market, or the businesses that are going to actually buy from you, but the people, the journalists, the content creators, the influencers who influence those people. If you would go to a conference in your industry and nobody would have any idea who you are, and yet you think that you're about to pioneer this revolution through your technology, you're underestimating the difficulty of getting anyone to care about even hearing how smart your idea is, because you have not laid the groundwork by making those connections, showing up, contributing to other people's success, chiming in on their work, being appreciated as a strong member of the community, a valuable member of the community, and then subsequently being invited to do things like, maybe you're not going to do a keynote speech at a conference, but maybe they want you to be on a panel. And you do such a good job, you show your relevance and how engaging you can be with an audience, that they maybe eventually ask you to do a breakout session. And, those things continue. If it's going to take you 3 or 4 years to get to market, during that 3 or 4 years, you should be building strong support among the people that will lift you up and support you and get behind you. So if nobody knows who you are, if you're not a known quantity among the people who are in the conversation, you're not going to get a warm reception. And I've seen even very wealthy, powerful people in one market who've had serious exits and made literally billions of dollars go into another market opportunity and just think, well, I've been successful over here, I don't need to do the groundwork over here, and then spend $7 or $8 million in a few years and completely fail because they didn't do the same kind of due diligence that they would have done, that they had done before. And, sort of like throwing a football down the football field when there's no receiver there to catch it. It's a completely wasted effort. What do you think is going to happen? You have to coordinate it and time it. And, another thing that people don't really appreciate, and this is kind of a third thing, and Kevin can kind of talk about this, but failure to really understand the importance of your branding even years before you launch. And you think, well, why would I have to worry about that when I'm not even going to market for at least a couple of years? I'll worry about that later. And the reason is because what is a brand? A brand is what people believe about you. That's what we say. And the minute that it doesn't matter what people you're trying to influence believe about you, that's the minute that branding doesn't matter. But because it is always important that whoever you're trying to persuade in any moment, it's important that they believe in you and buy into what you're offering and understand it. Branding becomes important from the beginning, and you should be nurturing it right from the start. As the technology is being built, as your team's being built, it'll affect how you attract people and what they believe in and how committed they are. It'll attract investors that believe in you and believe in your idea because they believe something about you. It's more than just the ones and zeros. So these are things that we care a lot about. Kevin writes extensively about branding.
We have, I was just thinking the other day about the popularity of startups that like to operate in stealth mode. They use this expression.
Let's be honest. There can be some advantage to that when there's like a highly competitive space and you're very early and you're not making. But at a certain point, you get to a level of like, we're going to be in market in like 24 months.
At a certain point, stealth mode is an excuse because you don't have a skill set developed to be able to do the things, or I should say, your competencies are all focused on technical issues or development issues or so on, which is fine. And you don't really know what the game plan should be to poke your head up out of the sand and shout to the world, we're here. Like, how do you do that? There's a lot of uncertainty around that. So it's more comfortable to stay in stealth mode longer. Well, the downside of that is that you're missing that opportunity to be intentional about starting something that will compound over time, right? John's talking about, starting early. Brand influence compounds over time. And so the earlier you get started, the less work you have to do if you start earlier than if you start late, just like saving for retirement.
Yep. And it's funny, as you mentioned this, I think in companies I've seen succeed and fail in the startup space. And one I'm working very close with that, frankly, they didn't even, I think there was buzz about them before they were even in beta testing. And, I had seen it at that point. And while they were going to VCs, they were starting to attend conferences and get their name out. And the first enterprise contracts that they got the product wasn't even done yet. That pattern has been repeated now in multiple countries where the first enterprise contracts they've landed because of what they've done in other countries is basic. It's still in dev, is getting contracts in those countries, large scale enterprise contracts, quite honestly. So it's amazing what you can do. It's amazing how little you can accomplish when you have a finished product and no funnel or no awareness, and how much you can accomplish when people are actually slowly being sold on your vision. And the money is literally there waiting for you just to finish up. And as you said, the investment piece as well. It's important. And I said the last thing about stealth mode is, where's your feedback mechanism? You think you're building something the market's going to accept, but do you have any idea?
That's right.
And your ideas can be in stealth mode, right? But you shouldn't be in stealth mode. The fact that you exist should be broadcast widely. And, there's a guy recently who asked to have a meeting with me who was with a major platform company, SaaS platform company. And I've known him for maybe 5 or 6 years, real contributor in the community. He was an employee of this company, always helping people, had a podcast, always doing demo sessions to help people with their problems. And anyway, he recently decided to leave this company and start his own startup based on creating a marketplace for certain skills around this technology. And the basic knee-jerk reaction when I heard this is, well, of course it was him. Of course he would be the one to do something like this. Everybody's going to see that, and everybody's going to root for him because of the foundation and the relationships that he laid, the demonstrated care for the space, right? A true commitment. And that's the kind of thing that you can't really manufacture. It's like, genuine authenticity. It's like, everybody talks about authenticity and transparency, clear, transparent transparency, not the opaque transparency, right? The sort of substitute, it's got to be real. It's got to be early. And what you want is keep people positioned at many levels and in different kind of regions of the market who are just like, yeah, wow, this totally makes sense that this person or these people are involved in this initiative. And I'm really excited to see what they do. And that, again, that's branding, right? You're out there making people believe in you. And that creates a tailwind to the work that you're doing. I tend to try to avoid going into situations like going to a conference where I'm quote unquote trying to network, and you're just walking up to people and trying to exchange business cards and tell me about you, here's a little bit about me, and that whole kind of mundane thing. Rather, I always try to go into a situation where I have something special to offer, right? And it could be as simple as, hey, my name is John. I'm having a cocktail party tonight at this really cool speakeasy. Here's a card. If you're interested in coming, show up at 7, and it's just a way to, it's not completely self-serving. You're doing something that could be cool and enjoyable for somebody else, but, maybe that leads to, wow, really like this guy. I hear he does talks on this topic. Maybe next time we have this thing, he could come and speak. It really is just about putting yourself out there and kind of shining up, the parts of you that are the best, and go in there and be an active, nurturing member of the community. And don't be afraid to speak up, because you're going to get a lot of validation and good insights into the things that you're offering. So that's the second reason why people don't really succeed is that they just don't invest enough in the relationships that are going to help them succeed, even if they have a really great idea that genuinely sees a need in the market. And so then, kind of that's more like the personal branding to get support. And I think we touched on branding, but branding itself, not developing a sense of the value proposition, not doing a serious comparative analysis of the competitive field, and early on getting really good at positioning yourself compared to those other businesses, and starting to put successive releases of information that build support over time, so that by the time you get to launch, you've developed the belief system around what you're doing to at least the same measure as the actual infrastructure of the platform.
Excellent. So, I mean, again, I'll echo, I've seen this done incredibly well with a couple of startups who I think, even when they were still when they basically proved out that the technical requirements, what they could do, and knew they could move forward, they hired the chief revenue officer almost right away. And this guy started going out there, shaking the tree, whether it be on enterprise relationships or VCs or whatever else it was, and starting getting the speaking gigs going. And again, like this company got out there and had a massive amount of demand lined up for when it was ready to go. Contrast that to companies I've seen where it's like, okay, we're ready to go live and we got 4 months of runway. It's like, okay, great. Do you have any contracts? No, nothing's really lined up yet. That's problematic, right? So it's troubling. So talk to me about, I guess, what are best practices around this for people when you come in. What are the kind of key cornerstones that you make sure that they kind of check the boxes on?
I think I've talked more than Kevin.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about how to narrow down best practices with respect to branding.
Well, let me start, and then you can fill in. So the first thing is to make sure, if you think about kind of the engine of your business, it has got a certain number of cylinders, and making sure that there is a cylinder in place for each component of the business, that there's nothing missing. So, for example, do you have a business plan, right? Have you thought through the road that's in front of you and truly demonstrated that you have command of everything that it is you're going to be facing? And do you have an answer for all the obstacles that you're going to face? And if, as is generally the case, there are areas of serious neglect in that thinking, one of the first things you've got to do is go around and address those things, especially when you're seeking funding, right? When you're presenting, here's what I'm trying to raise. And if you have an extremely articulate game plan that's well reasoned and sound, that demonstrates credibility, being smart about resource utilization, burn rate, being smart about priorities, that often can be just the nudge that an investor needs to go, yeah, this is, these guys have a very smart plan and I can believe in it. So, having that plan, really doing analysis of the existing solutions and looking at really what are the key differentiators? What is it that makes what you're doing so much better? Making sure that's really sound, because if you have something that's not, you can't patent it, or it's kind of orbiting other innovations, but they're easily they can be repeated and replaced by people who are better capitalized and more established in the market. Those are the kinds of things that you have to identify early on. And if there are any weaknesses there, there needs to be some real thinking around how to make a plan for a real competitive advantage. So kind of making that game plan for the technology itself bulletproof is a part of what needs to happen. Again, oftentimes entrepreneurs will surround themselves with people who are kind of, yay, Rago team, this sounds great. I want to support my friend. And they're not really getting the critical thinking that needs to go into shaping the thing. So those are some of the things that we do early on. Now, one of the things that we have done to attract clients in the past is, especially startups, is we'll go looking on platforms that are looking for a chief marketing officer. Because that's actually a mistake that companies make early on. They say, it's time to get a CMO. And they go and they pay a big salary and give points in their business to attract somebody who's more or less going to do a concentrated amount of strategic thinking. And then they're going to be hiring a bunch of people to do all the rest of it. And that's not a really smart utilization of funds until much later down the road. One of the reasons we exist is to come in instead of hiring a CMO, we bring a team of 7 or 8 people to come into the situation and serve the company on multiple levels in a very kind of integrated way to make sure that for, that same expenditure, you're getting not just the high level strategic thinking, but the practical implementation sensibilities and the ability to just move things around in a very significant way, whilst not making a commitment to a long-term salaried position. Usually, within 12 to 15 weeks, we can come up with the smartest possible game plan for a client. We have a thing we call a focus engagement that, for essentially the same salary you'd pay a CMO, but for about 3 months. And you have the most solid game plan that several very seasoned executives were involved to help your leadership team craft to make sure you're going in the smartest possible direction. So that's why we exist, is to make sure that things get set straight.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, you're doing all that work, but then at the same time, you're turning it back to someone internal to execute, correct? Or how much are you aiding that execution?
Well, because we're unlike a marketing firm, a traditional marketing firm or an advertising agency or something like that, we're completely committed to the outcome. We're there to help the client achieve their overarching business goals and to reach their milestones. So as we're kind of crafting this plan, it's in complete light of their actual financial reality. So the recommendations we're making are about maximizing the efficiency and the effectiveness of everything that's done, not just marketing, but also staffing, raising money, when and how to raise money. We've been involved in a lot of tens of millions of dollars of funds raised for clients in terms of helping influence the yes that they're after. So, we help kind of think through all of that. And once that plan is done, generally there's some kind of role for us going forward, but it's not like a normal agency would have. We don't see ourselves as the solution to everything. Spend all your money with us. No, generally speaking, there's going to be a complement of several players, and some of them third party. Some of them we help kind of shape their staff and help them hire people. But really, it's about getting the smartest possible players into the positions to maximize the probability of reaching the milestone and to have the marketing spend be as efficient as possible. And so we're even hard on ourselves. We know what a company can afford to spend on the kind of strategic thinking that we bring, and beyond which is just not healthy for them. It's not healthy for us. So generally we're involved in some capacity. We do a lot of branding, helping bring those brands to life. We do a lot with digital transformation and helping build marketing and sales pipelines and all the kind of technology involved in that, getting it set up right, bringing the cost of that way down. The reason we can do that is because most of the expertise around marketing technology, sales and marketing technology stacks, most of the real expertise is tied up within the companies that sell those platforms. And so they tend to be super expensive. Whereas we're agnostic. We understand how to design those systems, and we're just looking at it being the right size for the business at the stage of development that they're at. And oftentimes the kinds of solutions that we can help construct are, the cost of ownership is super low, and the ability for the client to make changes and do things that are super cost effective is really high. So, we try to guide our clients to the smartest possible utilization of their resources. And yeah, we generally have some kind of role, but the goal is, as long as they're moving forward, they're achieving their goals, all the numbers are lining up, they're tracking with their budget. Our goal is to be useful as long as we're useful. And at a point when, like the kid riding the bike, they take the training wheels off and now they know what to do. You don't want to sit there and try to hold on to them now that they can ride. You want to be there to encourage them. And if they fall, you're there to kind of help them heal. So, that's kind of our attitude is it's really about serving the client's need.
So question then becomes, when is it too early to come to you guys? And when is it too late? Like, I know you can do it when you get there, but there's got to be a sweet spot of the stage that they're at before.
Never too early, never too late.
Never too early, never too late. Unless they're out of money, right? Then it's too late.
Well, no. And really, I mean, I can think of a couple situations, two in particular. One was for a platform and one was for a consumer product. And they came to us and like, really believe in you, heard good things about you. I've got this big pile of money and I want to go and make this dream thing happen. And after a very short conversation, it becomes clear that what's going to happen is they're going to take their entire nest egg and they're going to blow it and they have zero chance of success. And what we tell them at that stage is, here is a path for you to take that will help you lay the groundwork for doing something like this in the future once you have kind of paid the price of qualifying yourself to do this. But as you stand right now, we can't advise you to go forward. We believe you lose all your money. So that's happened at least a couple times, and sometimes.
I mean, there's clearly times in which you can't recommend a course of action, but that's not the same as saying we can't offer help in helping someone diagnose their problem situation, and that at any stage. If it's really early, then maybe the problem is like they're looking for a problem solution to fit. They have a product or a nice service, and they haven't quite developed to the point where it's fitting, it's serving as a solution to a market problem. So we can help them find that. Later on, there's a stage where they're looking for product market fit, where they're trying to get traction. And it's a different set of challenges there. We can help them find that. And then later on, let's say they're much larger, they've got traction, they're looking to scale, and then they're looking for a business model that's going to fit their market and their business and make it scalable. That's a different problem again. It's also I see there's all different types of fittedness: problem solution fit, product market fit, business model fit. These changes over time. All of those, you're exploring the solution space around a problem. And you have to have a process for doing that. So one of the things that we do, we bring a process around problem solving where we open up the space of possibilities around a problem and explore that space, and then test things, and then you find things that look promising and zero in on those. And so there's an iterative process of adaptively finding solutions that are better fit. And that model, which is part of what we do, is a generic problem-solving model. Actually, which is a reason why it can be applied to almost in any industry and in any context, because every context has problems to solve.
All right, gentlemen. So before we wrap up, there's 3 questions I'm going to ask you both. You can volunteer as to who wants to go first on each of them. Let's end on a positive note. The first question I have for you is, if you had one wish for something you could change in your company or the industry as a whole, what would it be?
Ethics.
Oof. Okay.
Having ethics. In fact, Kevin and I have our own podcast called the Influence Hacker Podcast, and the entire mission is to discuss issues around making marketing more ethical. And so that's the first one. We believe that we've got just a terrible problem with propaganda, information pollution, all these horrible things that are really kind of bringing down humanity and kind of polluting human consciousness. But the paradox here is that we believe that marketing really is the answer, right? That's the problem, but it's going to have to be marketers who really come in and decide to change their thinking and align with a different set of values. And this is a set of values that we teach. So that's probably the biggest impact, would be making marketing more ethical.
Excellent. I've lamented about some actors in the industry basically having less than ethical marketing. And it's one of these things where it's almost like, I'm sure they're thinking of it almost like the description of the benefit of procrastination, and that hard work pays off in the future, procrastination pays off now. On some level, I'm sure they're thinking that the unethical marketing will pay off now, but there's absolutely a penalty to be paid for disappointing people and people learning that you can't be trusted. All right. So, Kevin, your turn.
Well, I'll just sort of extend from John's point. I do wish that we operated within a system where the natural incentive structure of the economic system and the financial system tended to support our best interests, but it does not. The natural tendency, if you don't bring your own set of values to the table, is that it makes us worse people. And because the natural incentives, the economic incentives, don't care about human welfare. They have a logic of their own. it's optimizing something, but it's not optimizing human flourishing. So you need the way that you survive, and in a highly capitalistic, highly economically competitive environment with the structure, at the end of the day, at the end of your career, you can look back and say, held high, is that you have to have brought an awful lot of your own personal values and integrity to the game from the very beginning, and nurtured it and defended it and resisted the other forces that otherwise, if you relax, it will take you apart. And that's the reality of that. And I wish that wasn't so, but I think it's true that you have to confront, if you want to do this work ethically and achieve long lasting success for clients where they can build a business they can be proud of and is sustainable. You have to look beyond the natural incentive structures of profit and loss. There's got to be other values at play.
I want to just piggyback off that, because it's not just about judging others and saying, you're unethical. But when in the context of clients coming to us, what we're trying to do is help them become the undeniable solution in their market and the brand their audiences come to know, trust, and love. That's our slogan. We want to help them become the undeniable solution in the market and the brand their audiences come to know, trust, and love. And how do you do that? How does that become more than just some slogan and a platitude? The way you do it is you do a very smart comparative analysis of what is currently being offered in the marketplace. And then you basically pursue this question: what is it that we could do with this platform that if we did it, it would make us undeniably the market leader? What is it that we could do that if we did it would make us the undeniable solution in the market? And so now what you're focused on isn't just trying to sell whatever it is you have and glossing over the deficiencies. It's about determining what is going to make your product really stand out, or your platform or your service, and then doing the hard work necessary to evolve it into that. Now, you maybe can't do it overnight, but you're moving it in that direction. You've got that vision and you're leading it there. And because you're doing that, now what does marketing become? Marketing becomes a process of persuasively educating people about the truth of why you are the undeniable leader, right? Just turning, it's like that dimmer switch in the dining room. You're just gradually turning on the lights of the truth. The more they dig in, the deeper they go, the more they're illuminated about the accuracy of that reality. And so that's really what our practice is about. It's not just about telling the story of what it is a client's doing, not just about putting a wrapper, and we're calling that a brand, around what it is they're doing. It's about fundamentally looking at the need in the marketplace, looking at the competitive landscape, and crafting a solution with the client that undeniably people would say, I'd have to be stupid to not say yes to this. This is clearly the right way for us to go. I'm going to say yes to that. So crafting that and then telling the story about that. That is where people go wrong. They don't go through that process. And it sounds so simple, and it really is. That it takes work and it takes determination and it takes will to want to compete and be the market leader, and not just kind of talk people into. I've got one of our clients, one of our earliest clients, and I won't say who it is, but they checked all the boxes, right? It's like, of course they would be the ones to do this because of their reputation and what they've done before. They did the hard work to really, and they truly understood the competitive field. And they saw absolute deficiencies in what was being offered. And this goes back to 2008. When they hired us, they were pre-revenue. And fast forward to today, one of our best references, they do like $400 million in revenue a year.
Well done. Excellent. All right. So the next question for you: what's been the biggest challenge in getting the company to where it is today?
Well, I mean, it's a matter of taking a dose of our own medicine, right? Yep. Because for years and years and years, I ran Lenker. I started it, I ran it, and we were limited by the fact that I was wearing all the hats and I was trying to control this vision. And there were ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs. The day that I decided to open myself up and be vulnerable to bringing in 3 other partners and transfer 75% of the value of Lenker to 3 other people, which is what I did, and bring super competent people that were going to not make it easy on me, But sort of the rigor of going through that and having super competent people come in, that transformed us almost overnight. Many X growth as a result of that. I stepped down as CEO, brought in somebody who was a much better leader of businesses. My title now is Chief Vision Officer, right? And, bringing in somebody like Kevin, I've always been so fascinated with, sort of the human factor side of all this. And I've written and tried, and I never had the background knowledge that somebody like Kevin has. So building a team, people who are really into data science and understand how to create markets, craft consumer segments based on data. And, there's all these people now who, lead strategy, lead research and analysis, lead business growth. That's sort of been the thing that kind of broke the dam for Lenker. Kevin, I don't know if you've got your version of that.
You getting out of the way. That's a great answer. I love that.
Getting out of the way is important. Hiring people who are different than you and smarter than you, or trying to, is always a good rule of thumb.
Absolutely. All right. Last question I have for both of you is, what excites you about what it is you're working on and keeps you getting out of bed every morning to fight the good fight?
I'm going to say that one of my main preoccupations with this job is entirely philosophical. It scratches an itch about deep understanding about the nature of the world, reality. And I'm very interested in things like when you see the Nike swoosh, you see that symbol, and it has a certain impression in your head, your brain fires and you have an experience. Now, how did that happen? What's the process that led from that arbitrary artifact? You were exposed to it, then all of a sudden it has this ring of resonance inside someone's brain. In fact, crowds of people at a distance, and its particular meaning. It's not just a shape. It's not just a color. It's not just a form or a word. It's a meaning. And how did it get attached? We have natural meanings in the world where smoke means fire or so forth. And you have these arbitrary meanings where arbitrary symbol gets attached to something in the world, like a meaning. That's very interesting. When branding, there is elements of craft and art involved, similar to I'm trying to paint a picture. I want to have the experience of whoever's going to view the picture, have an experience. How do I take what's in my head and create something in the world, pick a composition, whatever, such that then I can take that artifact away, show it to them, and they have an experience that's what I intended or something like that. It's a miraculous thing. We don't really understand how that happens, but there is a craft to it. With branding, you have this additional level of oddity to it, difference, because what you want to do is create associations between, say, your brand or your logo or your identity or some way with an audience segment, so that they get exposed to an ad or a commercial or a website. And then sometime later, they're gone. They're doing other things. They're on their bike. They're talking to someone. And a situation arises, and it's a trigger for them to think about your brand. How did that happen? How did it happen so that in that moment, it came to mind? And that was something that was good that they should have, because it was, and for example, it was something that was going to be a useful idea for them. So we're trying to engineer all that. And the craft of doing this is so intellectually interesting to me that we have a canvas every day with new clients, new opportunities for me to sort of explore the different dimensions of this weird thing that human beings are capable of doing. And if it also helps people take a great idea and find a home for it, that's great. Then you're making the world a better place. But I have to say, the whole human drama involved in what we do, for me, is intrinsically fascinating.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Greatly appreciated. And to anyone who's looking for this kind of support, by all means, check out Lenker. So that was today's interview with John and Kevin from Lenker. If you want to learn more about Lenker, visit lenker.com/fintech impact. And as always, if you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, take care.
This podcast was brought to you by Woodgate Financial, an award-winning financial planning firm catering to high net worth individuals and their families. To learn more, go to woodgate.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play, or find more episodes at jasonpereira.ca.